Calling all Doctor Who fans, it's action figure review time. This time I shall be taking a look at the 5 Doctors collector set, which is exclusive to B&M stores from Character Options. Once again, we have 3 different figures which are from the 20th anniversary story, featuring some incarnations of the Doctor. It's not all 5 of the first Doctors, but anyhow, we have the 3rd Doctor, we have the Cyber Leader from that story, and we also have a first time release of the Raston Warrior Robot. Packaging is the same as the usual B&M sets, with the figures clearly displayed inside, along with a backdrop from said story. You have the name of the set being the 5 Doctors 1983 collector figure set, and we have that gold sticker. Turning the box around, you can just see the prototype images of the figures. The backdrop inside the box is a screen grab from the 20th anniversary special, which is taken from the scene when the Raston Warrior Robot kicks the shit out of the Cybermen. Kicking things off with the 3rd Doctor from the 5 Doctors, this is the first time that we've actually had a variant of the 3rd Doctor which isn't based on a costume which he wore during his own era. Of course, this was during the 5th Doctor's era, so it's very nice to finally see this particular figure get a release after so many years. As you can see, we have a reuse of some of the parts which we've seen on previous 3rd Doctor figures, most notably the cloak. We also have a reuse of the jacket, but there are a couple of other differences which we will get into. We also have a reuse of the trousers as first seen on the Sea Devils version of the 3rd Doctor, which was released way back in 2009. Looking at the detail of the figure, this looks absolutely exceptional. It looks just like how the 3rd Doctor did in that story from 1983. Taking a closer look at the head sculpt, the head sculpt is the same as other 3rd Doctor figures, and he has that sort of weird wash on his face which we've seen on 3rd Doctor figures as of late, like the Monster of Peladon version, which came out within the last couple of years as part of a B&M exclusive with the TARDIS from that story. But overall, you can tell it's Pertwee. If I was to criticise this figure, as per se, it's not really a criticism, because Jon Pertwee aged like a fine wine, then all I'd say is maybe they could have tried to make him look a little bit older, seeing as this was quite a few years after his time on the show did end. It's just a minor nitpick. Looking at the cloak, it has the same colours as what you'd see on the cloak in the 5 Doctors. You have the stripy pattern running all the way down with the black and creamy colour. Back of the cloak is brown, and you can just see here you've got that creamy colour just at the sides there. Trousers, they look the same as your usual Jon Pertwee trousers. They're just black trousers going all the way down, and he's got his black shoes. He doesn't wear his boots in this, it's just his shoes. Now, taking a look at the jacket, it looks really great. Cloak is removable, so I'll just move that out of the way so you can take a closer look at it. Without that cloak, you might be mistaken for thinking that this is a 3rd Doctor figure from Season 8, which is fine, because in Season 8 he did wear this sort of attire quite a few times. But what I quite like about this version of the figure is that the shirt is new. Because usually with your 3rd Doctor figures, he wears neck accessories like a bow tie or cravat. But this time, you just have his shirt with the frills, which have been very nicely detailed. And you can see part of this sticking out at the cuffs, which you always see on your 3rd Doctor figures. And yes, he does have his ring on his little finger on his left hand there. So yeah, I think that the detailing overall is very nice on the jacket. It's painted in a dark red. Around the edges of the lapels and the collar and just the edges of the jacket as well. It's painted in a lighter red as well, which I really like. I really like that attention to detail. Going back to the cloak for a second, I like how the inside is just painted all in brown. As usually with your cloaks for your Third Doctor figures that we've had, they're usually painted in some sort of shade of red. So I like how we have a little bit of variety going on. I'm very excited to see what character options will do with future Third Doctor figures, because this is a B&M set which the Third Doctor is wearing a cloak. Previous versions didn't really include a cloak, so we might be able to see more versions of the Third Doctor represented from his own era in the future, especially now that we have versions which do not include the bow tie or the cravat. As ever, articulation of the Third Doctor is not all different. The head can move from side to side, doesn't move all that much. The shoulders can move all the way around, which is a good job it does, so he can put his cloak on. You just hold your arms up like that, you can easily put this cloak back on the main body of the figure. Obviously with the cloak on, the articulation isn't as varied, so you can't really move your biceps as much, but without the cloak you can move your biceps all the way around. You can move your elbows up and down, and then moving to the lower section, the waist can do a 360-degree turn. Your legs can move out from side to side, and they can also move backwards and forwards. There is 360-degree turns at the thighs. There's movement in the knees, and you have 360 at the wrists. That is pretty much all I have to say about the Third Doctor. Overall, I really love this version of the Third Doctor, and I'm glad that we have got a release of a Third Doctor which isn't based on his era. Next up we have the Cyber Leader from the Five Doctors, which is a very welcome release. I'm glad to see that we have the Five Doctors version of the Cybermen finally get a release in the 5.5 figure line. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think we've ever had these Cybermen before. All in all, they're not all that different to your Earthshock ones or the Attack of the Cybermen versions. The body of the figure is more or less the same, with all the immaculate amount of detail, like with the piping and just with the tubes and all of that. Very, very remarkable figure, just as I thought when the original Earthshock figure came out in 2010. The handlebars have been nicely painted black, but you have your silver bits in there, which is just like how they looked in this particular story. And your mouthpiece is still transparent. Not as transparent as the Earthshot one though. I think that the Earthshot one was a bit more transparent. You could see more of the jawline of the Mondasian inside, so that's quite interesting. It must be how it looked in the story. And you can see like the tubes here have been painted in a transparent plastic as well, which is just like how it looked as well. Everything else, like your chest piece, all the same with your black bit in the middle. And as I said, he has his pipes. Having a look at the shoes I think are different to the original Earthshock ones, because these ones have the detailing of laces on them, as I believe that by this point the Cybermen had laces on their boots. So it's quite a good attention to detail there from character options. And what I'm also very glad about is that this guy includes his car air freshener gun. As always, I always thought it was a pain in the ass for these guys to hold these particular guns, but I suppose it's not as bad as the Silver Nemesis versions of these guys, as those figures are really hard to pose with the guns. But as you can see, this gun is very nicely detailed. As I say, you got this car air freshener bit with your red and black and silver, and I just like how you've got the bits of silver just painted on there. And what I also like is the fact that around the handles here you have little details of black, which I suppose might have been rubber in the actual show. I like how Character Options have done this, because obviously the main barrel of this gun is painted silver, but I like how you have at your handle parts here more details of black paint, because on the original Earthshock version you did have that little bit of black on there, but not as much as this Five Doctors version. So I think that is a good revision to the gun, which character really didn't have to do, especially for a B&M set. And just having a look at this band for the gun, that's just all painted in black, and it's made out of a PVC, so it's very rubbery, and hopefully you don't snap that. One thing to note as well while I'm reviewing this, I think the paint applications for this Cyberman is really good. I feel like they're using the same sort of silver as what we've seen on the history of the Dalek sets, notably for the 1960s variants of the Daleks. It's a really nice wash of silver, and I think it really works, particularly for the 1980s Cybermen. One thing to note with this figure as well is the fact that other versions of this Five Doctors set just include a Cyberman from the Five Doctors. Luckily I've got the Cyber Leader version because I wanted the Cyber Leader version, because I just think that Cyber Leaders look cool, particularly from the 1980s, and I suppose you could disguise this as a Cyber Leader from Earthshock, but for now I'm just going to leave it as being a Cyber Leader from the Five Doctors. Articulation on this guy is more or less the same as what you see on the 80s Cybermen figures. Head doesn't move, it never did in the program, that's fine. The shoulders can do a 360, although it is hindered by this chest piece, which is a separate piece which is just attached to the body of the figure. It goes all the way around from the pipe at the back there. And then you have bicep articulation, your elbow articulation, the wrists can move all the way around, the waist can do 360, legs can move up and down, they can move out from side to side. You have knee articulation, and you have 360 degrees at the boots. And for comparison purposes, here is the original Earthshock figure from 2010 compared to the new Five Doctors version of the Cyber Leader. Obviously you have your differences in the handlebars, because Cyber Leaders had black handlebars, whereas your normal Cybermen troops were just all painted silver. As you can see, there are a few other differences, such as the top of the helmet there, painted green. This is just painted silver because they didn't have that green colour going on in the Five Doctors. And apart from that, the figures are more or less the same, and as I said before, boots are different too. And if we just take a look at the bottom of the boots, they are painted brown. I think this is just to give the illusion that these Cybermen were walking around a lot on the hillsides on Gallifrey, so it makes sense that Character Options went to that extra bit of detail. Oh, and another thing I've just noticed, the eye sockets are painted black, much like the Silver Nemesis versions were painted black in a set a couple of years ago. I really hope that one day we get another version of the Cyber Leader based on this Earthshock design, because I think that the Cyber Leader from that particular story is probably the best Cyber Leader that we've ever had. So Character Options, if you're watching this, please release another Earthshock set. Last up we have the Raston Warrior Robot, which to be honest was a no-brainer by Character Options. It is a simple figure to make. We have a couple of new parts on this, but the main body of this is again that Sherazjek body from what we saw quite a few years ago, and that's being reused on quite a few figure releases recently, namely the androids from Earthshock, which I've just done a review of, and we also had them on the Vuid and the Sensorite figures. So it's very nice to see this get done for this set, because it allows us to get another new character on the shelf, and it's a really cool character. Not the biggest part of the 5 Doctors, but still very cool nonetheless. Now, the new parts of this figure are mainly the hands and the head. But before we get to that, let's talk about the paint applications. The body has just all been painted in this nice finish of silver. Gotta commend the character on that. It looks very plain on camera, but I think in real life it looks way better than how it looks here. And what I like is the feet have been painted in a different type of silver. If there was a complaint I'd have, then maybe it's the fact that it just turns to silver, it's just a straight line. Now, I don't know if that's accurate, but I would have liked it if it just sort of faded into that silver. But again, that just might be me. Might not be anything wrong with it at all. It might just be nitpicky on my part. What I like is the fact that at the very bottom of the soles there, you have little specks of black paint, because like the Cybermen, these guys were patrolling the hillsidey areas of Gallifrey, as you saw in the backdrop of the box from before. So I like how Character Options did that little bit of detail there by adding that black paint. As you can see, the hands are a brand new sculpt. Almost looks like he's doing a Vulcan salute here, but he is firing something out of his hand, because they fired like spears out of their hands, and usually they pose like that and they would just shoot at the Cybermen. So I like how characters did that, because I feel like it is an essential part of the figure. Both hands are sculpted like that. Kind of looks like he's just come out of a disco in a way. The head sculpt to some people might look very plain, but I really like the way that this has been sculpted. You may be able to see part of a reflection of my thumb just there, and I think that looks very accurate to how this particular character looked. It actually makes this character look cooler in figure form as to what you see in the actual program, because it's just a guy in a leotard, let's face it. You may think that this is just the same head sculpt as what we've seen on the Android figures from the Earthshock set, but actually no, this is entirely different, which I'm quite surprised about. The costumes in the show were the same costumes, but it's just completely painted silver, and I thought that the head will be the same as well, but no. Character Options have gone an extra length. They've done a new head sculpt once again. Really wouldn't have minded if they used the same head, but there you go. Well done, Character Options. Now for articulation. This guy has a ton of articulation. Head goes all the way around. The shoulders are ball jointed, so they can move all the way around as per usual, but they can also move out to the side. We have 360 in the biceps. You have articulation in the elbows. They can go up and down. Wrists can go all the way around. The legs can go from side to side, and look at all that articulation there. Very, very nice. You also can move the legs forward and back. You can do 360 at the thighs. Knees can bend, and the waist can go all the way around. So that is the 5 Doctors collector set. Overall, I think this is a brilliant set. It has a nice bits of variety going on with a new variant of the 3rd Doctor, and we have a new variant of Cyberman, or Cyber Leader, depending on what version of the set you get. Very glad that I've managed to get the Cyber Leader for this particular time. And we also have a brand new character getting a first time release in the form of the Raston Warrior Robot. Definitely recommend picking this set up. It's nice to have more characters from the 1980s gets a release. And hopefully there's more of this to come in the future. Feel free to check out more action figure reviews done by me, the Obsesstuvian 95. Please leave a like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more Doctor Who action figure reviews to come. Take care, guys. See you next time.